Good evening and welcome back to 10 to Go Radio, Week 3. I'm Honorary Boomer and joined by
My name is Daniel T. Manuel.
Daniel the Manual. Very good. So, Daniel, we're going to start this week with a story as we always do. And this time we're talking about Atlanta.
Well, what are we talking about with Atlanta? There's
Well,
a ton of stuff that happened.
I know. I figure let's narrow it down to just the sign caution. Do you remember the sign caution?
Sign caution.
Yeah, we were watching the race.
I definitely remember that. I definitely remember.
Yeah.
The
How could you
sign
forget,
caution.
right?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, so it's a caution, much like your average normal everyday. I'm cautious that this one was like on the side, meaning that he hits the wall, right? Like the side, like that's hit the sidewall, and then that's what a side caution is.
Oh, well, no, this is a sign.
A sign
SIGN.
caution.
Yeah. So
Because I'm one of
maybe
the.
you're drawing a blank.
I'm drawing a blank.
That's
To be honest
okay.
with you.
That's okay. So I'll fill you and the viewers in. So
Okay.
we were watching the race go by, and these signs are for sponsors of the track. So they're sponsors
Mhm.
of the car that are on the car,
Yeah.
right? And they're
Hmm.
sponsors of the race, and those sponsors are usually painted in the infield. And then there's sponsors that are on the TV, so they pay like just to be on the commercials. And then there's sponsors that are like associate sponsors of the track, right? And so like you
Hmm.
think Kansas, you think like Hy-Vee. You
Yeah.
think Atlanta, which is where we were, you think like uh, Quaker State and
Yeah.
Walmart. So even if they're not the sponsor of the race, they're the sponsor of the track. And so they get this nice little sign that's like really floppy and apparently held in with super glue because the cars are going by so fast. I suppose they probably never had a problem like this because it's never been a super speedway, right? And now it is. So that brings a lot more wind, and that wind blew the sign right out of there. And so
Oh.
they at first they sent the AMR safety crew over to fix it, and then they were like, "No, just rip it out. Just rip it down. We're done. No more Walmart. Sorry."
If I'm if I'm the company on that sign, I'm a little livid.
Do you
I
do
paid
you
I paid for that sign to be there. I
do
paid
you
for it to be there.
do you expect a little bit of a refund?
I sure do.
You missed 20% of the race. Here's a 20% refund
Yep,
check.
I do. And
Oh,
that's a contingency in my contract actually.
oh,
Because I'm Walmart and I have expensive lawyers, so I plan for this.
sure, sure.
Um, no, I'll be honest with you. I feel bad. I don't remember the sign caution, or I don't remember a ton about the sign caution.
That's okay. It was on Cup Day. That was the crazy part about it. So anyway, all right. Well, that was lap 10. Fun stuff. Fun stuff at Atlanta. Um, Jumping on to lap 9. So we talked a little bit about JGR and their
Hmm.
struggles. You know, they've got two superstars that are leading the way and two that are trying their best to make something happen, right? And so Joe Gibbs' grandson, Ty Gibbs, is in the 54 car, and his teammate, Christopher Bell, who just won the three-peat, um, he is doing dirt. So C. Bell's on
Okay.
dirt, and he's trying to convince Ty Gibbs to get into dirt too, right?
Hmm.
So Ty qualifies his way into the main event and then rolls the car 3 times.
That's rough.
Yeah. So if you're not familiar, are you familiar with 410 sprint cars?
Not specific. I know about dirt treks. I've seen one of those. Actually, no. I watched a bunch of them growing up, but I don't know specifically the numbers or anything like that.
Sure, sure. So these 410 sprint cars are, and I'll say that this is probably not my cup of tea either, but I know a little bit. And it's almost like somebody said, hey, let's build a race car. Okay, here's the budget.
Hmm.
And they spent their entire budget on the motor and transmission and then forgot about the rest of the car.
Yeah, looks like the chassis is made out of like toothpicks and bubble gum.
Well, like the chassis is the size of a golf cart, you know?
What?
Yeah, it's very small.
I'm sorry. Can we pull up an image of this car?
Yeah, so if you just Google 410 sprint car, take a good gander at that.
410 sprint car. What the? What? That fella does not fit in there.
Yeah. Well, Ty Gibbs does because he's very small. You remember Ty Gibbs, don't you?
Which one was
We
Ty
saw him at
Gibbs?
Coda. He
Oh,
was
we
he's
did
the
see him
blonde
at Coda,
kid
didn't
at
we?
the Toyota booth.
Oh, God, I do remember that. Oh yeah, he was the guy that we were trying to get pictures of at the Toyota.
Yeah, he signed stuff for us.
Hmm.
So
I do. He wasn't one of the cards I got, was it?
I don't think so, but he
Oh.
should have been because next time I see you, I'll give you one.
No, I have McDowell, Austin Hill, and Jesse Love is who I have.
Yeah. So I'll have to get you a copy of Ty Gibbs sometime. Um. So he started out on dirt. Well, I shouldn't say he started out on dirt. He did his first dirt race and ended up rolling 3 times, which I'm sure. I mean, if you're a team owner, right, Dan, put yourself in Grandpa's shoes here. On one hand, you've got your grandson going head over heels 3 times in a row. You know, could have been a lot worse. Could have been incapacitated and never drive again, right? Which is a problem for you because you've told Monster and all of your other sponsors, Interstate Batteries, all these people are relying on you fielding a car for the rest of the year, ideally with your grandson, right?
Okay, how I feel as though there should be a clause in the contract that in case my legs turn into a pretzel, um, that I don't have to fulfill the rest of this contract.
Yeah, but how do you explain that to Interstate Batteries? They're like, oh, he got in a wreck in NASCAR? No, he got in a wreck on Tuesday.
Uh,
Oh,
like a
like
real wreck.
driving, like driving to the grocery store. He got in a wreck driving to the grocery store. No, he was racing, just not in NASCAR.
Oh,
And so then, how does
that
Interstate
could be
Batteries take
problematic.
that? What does Dan the Man and Associates say if you paid to be on the car with Ty Gibbs?
Well, the way that I look at it is that you can't fulfill your contract. And so why you can't fulfill your contract is none of my problem. I'm
Uh huh.
taking all my money back.
Yikes.
But, that's me if I'm Monster Energy, you know?
Monster seems to be willing to spread the love as long as you're in a Toyota, right? Because like the 45 Tyler Reddick sponsored by Monster, and the 35 of Riley Herbst.
I only have one. I have a weird example about Monster Energy sponsorships, but it's like completely out of left field, not super on topic.
Oh, what do you got?
Well, Monster Energy used to sponsor a streamer called Summit, right? And it was like big CS:GO type of guy. And this guy got caught holding a bong for the Mary Jane, and Monster dropped him as a sponsor,
Yeah,
which seems a little backwards to me because I feel like that's very on brand for Monster.
it could be, but I tell you what, if it was 10 to go radio, I think I would drop them too. That's just not the image we're looking for. Um, but back to these dirt cars, right? So on one hand, you've got your grandson flipping 3 times on like the first lap. Don't quote me, but it was not very far into that race. Um, and the problem is that these cars have so much power and so very little to keep them on the ground. So when you race dirt,
Oh,
you have a lot of issues, as you can imagine. As you saw that picture of that car,
yeah.
it wants to flip. It wants to get
I
out
was
of
gonna say
line.
it looks almost top heavy a little bit.
I mean, it's got those big wings to try to keep it planted, but if
Uh,
you get sideways at all, like it gets bad.
I
So
see.
so on one hand, you've got people that are like, yeah, don't do it because Ty could get hurt, and then you've
Hmm.
got this is the first season that he's allowed it, and this is the first season that Christopher Bell went back to back to back. Right, the first time that somebody's
Wow.
gone back to back to back in years in NASCAR. So clearly, a little extracurricular racing helps, right? I mean, that's
Yeah. Well, it comes down to the weird thing of it's like what's best for the racer and what's best for the sponsor, right? Because the challenge that you run into is that with the sponsor, if you're racing all the time, you're at higher risk of injury.
Could be,
right? Because you're involved in more stuff.
but most of
So
the time it's the
are they
same
mostly
people.
cool with that? Are the sponsors mostly fine with them driving in the other races, like outside of NASCAR?
The sponsors are most of the time, like
Mm.
Kyle Busch when he races outside of the NASCAR, uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's with Lucas Oil, which is a partner
Oh,
sponsor of RCR.
really?
Yeah, and when Ty Gibbs went head over heels 3 times, that was with Monster, same sponsor.
I don't know why I was under the impression that like NASCAR was like locking shit down like John Deere, and like,
NASCAR
hey, you
is.
can't. NASCAR is, the sponsors don't care.
Yeah, the sponsors don't care. But
Ah,
but NASCAR says like you want to race our cars in a parking lot somewhere on Tuesday nights? No. Nope, can't do
mm.
it.
So
So we spend a lot of
NASCAR only cares that it's their car.
right, they spend a lot of money developing that car and so they don't want you to race it outside of their events on their tracks with their ticket sales. So
I suppose
interesting
I can see that.
decisions for
Yeah.
JGR.
Do you think that over the next several years that NASCAR is going to get more like tightened down on racers being able to race in other circuits and stuff? Or do you
I
think
mean
there'd be
they
too
are
much back? Or do you think there'd be like way too much pushback from the audience and from the other drivers?
I mean there already is, right? I mean you've got Kyle Larson that's running the 500. He's running the double and he almost didn't get that waiver. My question is, NASCAR said in their excuse policy, like, hey, it's okay if you miss a race for medical reasons,
Mm,
even if it's like your wife is giving birth, right? So it's not your medical reasons, but it's your family's medical reasons. What happens if I get hurt on a Tuesday and I can't race for 3 weeks, like Alex Bowman did? I mean, it wasn't a NASCAR related injury,
yeah.
but you already excuse non NASCAR related injuries. So
Hmm.
I don't know. I feel like in that case, NASCAR would probably be like, yeah, no, sorry. You're not getting a waiver. You're not championship eligible.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I don't
So,
know. I don't know. I guess I'm surprised it's not already more locked down.
yeah.
Just given how I can imagine how protective they would be over the drivers.
But this is America, Dan. I mean, you can race wherever you want.
I suppose so. I guess that's the kind of the benefit of. I think like. So here's the thing, and I just have questions. When when they sponsor, so like when Monster Energy decides, hey, I want to sponsor that car, they're just paying the driver, or they're paying NASCAR too.
They're paying the team. So
Okay.
NASCAR doesn't see any of that revenue.
Okay. So now this is making a lot more sense. Okay. Yes. Then, yeah, the drivers are making their money independently of NASCAR themselves, and the NASCAR is making money on ticket sales.
You've got it.
I
And
see.
sometimes those are like business to business deals. So like Hendrick sells a lot of cars. That's why they
Hmm.
have hendrickcars.com.
Yeah. Like
And so
licensing.
they kind of sponsor themselves in a way,
Hmm.
but then also you can imagine with a car dealership that large nationwide selling all those cars that your bank would be important,
Yeah.
who you bank with.
Oh yeah.
And so they bank with Ally, and that's why Ally pays them back. They sponsor Hendrick all year long with the 48, right? So
Interesting.
sometimes those are business to business deals like JBL and Toyota trucks, because you buy a Toyota with JBLs in it. It's not a Bose sound system. It's not a,
Hmm.
whatever. Anyway, okay, so off of sponsorship and on to, I'm going to try this marker. There's a button for mark.
Okay.
So I'm going to add a mark there to say, oh, that's a clip. Yeah,
I was gonna
anyway.
say. I feel like it was really good about separating it out for us.
Yeah, folks, we're trying to learn how this podcast recording software works. So hang in there with us, okay?
Yep. We're still
Um,
trying to figure it out.
we're on to lap 8. So this is kind of some old news. Do you know Corey LaJoy?
No.
Okay, so Corey LaJoy is kind of an underdog, right? He works with underfunded equipment, and he doesn't do very well, but people say that he gets the most out of his equipment. He drives it. Maybe this car is only like a 20th place car, but he's going to drive it to a 15th. He didn't win the race. He didn't get a top 5. But you know what? He got more out of the equipment than it's capable of. That's the theory anyway, right? So he is out of a ride this year. only sometimes. He's working with Rick Ware Racing, which is known as kind of they're a team out there, you know.
Yeah.
Not a great team, but they'll make a race car. He was quoted a while ago. Like I say, this is kind of some old news. This is something I was thinking about today. Corey LaJoie basically said in an interview, I had truck team offers, like really, really good trucks and pretty decent Xfinity. I didn't want to race on Saturdays or Fridays where there are 12 people in the stands. That is a quote. And I feel like it's disrespectful. It's disrespectful to everybody in the lower series.
Yeah.
And I don't know that it really gives you any notoriety to say, like, look at me. I'm still running in the Cup Series in 20th place. He led laps during the Daytona 500. He shocked everybody. But it's a drafting track, man. Anybody could make their way up there.
Yeah. I think, honestly, I think it would be the other way around. I think that if more of the Cup Series drivers also drove Xfinity, that Xfinity would have more viewers.
Well, they do. Like we talked about last week. I guess you weren't on last week, but Eric Almirola and Alex Bowman were both racing for the lead in Xfinity last week. So, I mean, Eric Almirola is a great example of somebody who was pretty okay in Cup. Never really made any headlines. Really in there just because of his sponsor. But when he went down, now he's winning races. Right? He's contending for a win because he's in top tier equipment. Right? And he's got experience. So even if he's not the best, he's still making waves in Xfinity. And I think that that's a worthy cause.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't know. Me personally, man, like and this has just been kind of just track record for me. I feel like I like Xfinity more than I like Cup. I don't know if it's just because I've had like such a strong just series of cool stuff happening in Cup. I'm sorry, in Xfinity and not in Cup. But I just feel like the Xfinity races are, for me, far more entertaining. And so
I think that's because of the car.
Yeah. Like, what's like the core difference between like Cup and Xfinity? Because I was under the understanding it was just the drivers and like Cup drives more laps.
Yeah, and that's true. But the Gen 7 car is new. So like the Cup car was revamped a few years ago, and they tried to make it better at road courses, and it has suffered a little bit at the rest of the tracks, right? Okay. And so Xfinity was made specifically for ovals. So they were like, yeah, it might not race good at any other kind of track, but we don't care. We wanted to race good at ovals. And they haven't changed that car because it's supposed to be a cheaper series to run in. And so anytime they want to change things, the owners are like, no, please, it's expensive. We don't want to do that. So they're like, okay, fine. So the car hasn't changed much. The Xfinity car hasn't in a while. And some people say that produces better racing. I mean, I agree with that.
Yeah, I can see that.
But, yeah, I mean, so talking about good racers in Xfinity, Harrison Burton wasn't very good in Cup. Won once, again at Daytona. So it's like, well, take it with a grain of salt. But hey, a win's a win. And and now he's back in the Xfinity series, actually doing pretty good. So I think that's something that Corey LaJoie passed on. You're definitely not going to convince a team now in a lower series to take you up after you say things like that. You've burned that bridge. You look at some people though, like Cole Custer won a championship in Xfinity, and now he's coming back to Cup. And I mean, it's early. I'll say it is early in the season. But boy, howdy, if things don't improve for Cole Custer, it's not looking good, and we've been down this road before where Cole Custer was in racing on Sundays and not making a whole lot of noise. So, I don't know. He made some noise in the wrong way at the Daytona 500. But
what happened at Daytona 500?
Oh, he that last lap crash was kind of his fault there.
Fellas doing pit maneuvers.
Not exactly, but also not not
I'm not
racing
right, but I'm not
the
wrong.
best. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say it's kind of right in the middle there, but
Hmm.
um, but yeah, I mean, anything else on Corey LaJoy and Burning Bridges?
I don't. I don't think so. I don't think so. Hey, if I can go off the record for a second. Um, so I wanna know your thoughts on this. Just kind of since we're like 20 minutes into the episode already. I feel as though like so you are way up here in your knowledge and stuff, and I'm way down here. And I feel like there's so much stuff that I can't help but just kind of smile and nod and just like say haha to up here. So I wonder if maybe the better path is that like you meet me down here and like because I could see us talking about like the actual like how the racing works, like the super basic bits of the conversation. And I could see that flowing a little bit more if you're interested in pushing that direction.
Definitely something we can work on, trying to bring down the technical jargon. I mean, if you get caught on something, let me know,
Mm-hmm.
and we can talk through it
I gotcha.
for sure. So, well, that's the end of lap 8. I think lap 7. We're talking about Chevrolet, and so each of the manufacturers in Cup right now, and this goes for all 3 series,
Mm-hmm.
all 4 series. You've got Toyota, Chevy, and Ford, and they're pushing their different models, right? Like the idea is like, hey, win on Sunday, sell on Monday. That's how they used to do it, and it's not really that way anymore. Like nobody's going out and buying a Toyota Camry XSE because it won on Sunday, but the idea is
They're
more the
not?
brand. You know, some people say they are, but like Camaro is not selling, but it's winning.
Yeah.
So there was some talk a while ago about switching manufacturers. Like if
Mhm.
Chevy wasn't there, if GM was going to put like Cadillac in. Cadillac does some racing in other series. And now it's kind of floating around that no, Chevy is going to be in the Cup Series, which is funny because we don't have another car. So the idea is like, does NASCAR abandon its roots and say like, I don't care if you actually sell the car or not, like you can feel the car in Cup.
Mm-hmm. So like saying that like, hey, even if you don't sell the car itself, like if you no longer manufacture and sell it, you can still run it.
Right.
I don't see any problem with that.
I mean, in a way, it's like, hey, I can't walk into a Toyota dealership and say, hey, I really like the Toyota Camry XSE with the V8 engine that I see Tyler Reddick drive on Sundays. I want to buy that one. You know, the one
Yeah.
that's rear wheel drive and manual.
Mm-hmm.
They don't make that. That's not an option. So it's
Yeah.
like,
I
yeah,
mean, what do you do when you know that it doesn't lead to sales? Like having a winning car doesn't lead. Like, what do you do?
it's tough, right? I mean, because there's definitely brand loyalty there. Like, guy might drive an Equinox because he's got 3 kids, but
Yeah.
and he might root for Kyle Larson. He might have a Kyle Larson sticker on there,
Mm-hmm.
but he's not going to buy a Camaro.
Yeah. But he may continue to buy Chevy.
Yeah, I mean he's
Right.
Chevy diehard, right? His grandpa had
Yeah.
a Silverado, his dad had a Silverado, and so he's going to carry that Chevy banner with him.
So are they not making the Camaro no more?
No,
Wow.
and
Really?
that's where this issue comes up, right? Because NASCAR says you have to make the car if you want to race the car on the track.
That sounds like a legacy law to me.
It very much is.
That sounds like something that could be changed, and probably not too many people would care.
So the way that this used to happen was that if you wanted, like they would say, this super duper expensive, like literally we're building a race car.
Yeah.
Here it is. And they would have to make at least 500 of them. So like the Dodge Daytona Superbird, right, that you see with the big wing and the like swooped nose. They had to make those and sell them, and now they're worth lots of money. But
Really?
NASCAR was like, "What? You don't actually make these?" And they're like, "You got to make, I don't know, like 500 of them to say that you actually make this car."
That's it? Only 500?
I mean, I don't know. Maybe it was more than that, but like you have to make so many in order to race it in NASCAR. And now it's like, well, you don't have to make one that's the same spec, right? Like here, this is the spec that you need to make them to.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question is, do we still need that rule? Or do we just say, hey, build a car to our spec and you can slap a name on it if you want?
So I think that you can get away with cars that were previously made. Right. They were like, hey, I produced these cars at some point. But I
But it's
think the
not
whole
worth
thing.
it to carry the Camaro banner because you're not selling any Camaros.
Well,
Wouldn't
yeah,
it?
but they just. But I mean, what? I mean, they're not going to put. They're not going to start racing the Equinox
No,
or the
but
Mal. They're not. They're not racing the Malibu.
they actually used to.
But like the Camaro looks so tough, right?
Yeah.
Like it's such a good look. It just doesn't make any money.
That's why one of my favorite cars is the Lumina. Because the Lumina on track was just crazy. Dale Earnhardt wheeling that thing around. If you look at like a 93 Dale Earnhardt Lumina,
Oh my goodness. This is Oldsmobile.
that's one of my favorite cars. Diecasts.
Yeah, they should just bring this back.
Right?
Screw the Camaro.
And that thing had like 900 horsepower. And then look up just a 93 Lumina. Like, this is the car that your grandma drives, the lunch lady, and the librarian all drive a 93 Lumina. And you're like,
I think that my second grade teacher might have actually driven this car.
pretty sure.
This is
So,
memories. I've seen this before. Yeah, they should just race this, man. Honestly.
so I mean, that's the thing is like, what you race on Sunday has not been what you sell on Monday for a long time.
No.
And so the question is, like, are we allowed to just continue to do? NASCAR gave a 1 year exemption to Chevrolet, right? They said, hey, listen, you can run this car for 1 year while you're figuring things out over there. And now Chevy's kind of like, hey, can we just run this forever? Can we just update the car and like, yeah, give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
Yeah, NASCAR gave the inch. Now they've
So-
they've shown that they're willing to budge on it.
So do you feel like it's fine if Chevrolet wants to update their Camaro that doesn't exist, but then not put Camaro anywhere on it? Because I feel like it is a powerful marketing tool. Right now, they still race the Camaro, but it doesn't say Camaro; it just says Chevrolet.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think that's fine. Because at the end of the day, it's like, it's one of those things where it's just tradition. And I don't think, like, it's just tradition. It doesn't make money, the Camaro, so it doesn't make sense for it to keep making it just to race at NASCAR. And I don't think that the majority of people, I mean, are people complaining about it this year?
Only people who it benefits, right? So like the people
loud
at Ford
minority.
are like, "What? We have to make the Ford Mustang."
Yeah, over here acting like
So-
you're not going to just make the Ford Mustang anyway.
Well, yeah, but we put a lot of money and time into it, and so that's the only way that we get to race in NASCAR. You should have to build something.
No, listen, Ford could race a Taurus if they really wanted to.
Well, we don't make the Taurus anymore.
Well, what's a sedan that fucking
That's the
Ford-
only sedan that they make is the Mustang.
No.
Yeah,
No. Ford ends sedan production as
Sure
the
did.
Fusion is phased out. What? Okay, hold on. This gets deeper.
what do you got?
This gets a little deeper. Well, because I think at the end of the day, it's like they don't. Well, I guess if they implemented the rule, then if Ford wanted to stop making the Mustang, they could stop producing the Mustang and they could just race it.
So let me ask you this: what stops us from adding a fourth manufacturer called Dan the Man and Associates,
Well,
who
you
doesn't
see,
actually make any cars?
see that's actually kind of the ploy for all this. You know what I'm saying? It's for me to be able to race a car of my own.
Oh, so you're in on it. You've been working with the folks in Daytona.
I'm in cahoots with Daytona actually.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to cut this part out of the podcast too. This is under NDA.
I'm sorry, we don't do any editing here at the Tend to Go Radio. It's all live. So
Okay, no, we're gonna just it's gonna be a magic trick. It's just gonna be gone.
snap. Okay, our viewers completely forgot that. So what are you proposing is like, in order to race in NASCAR, you have to be a manufacturer who manufactures at least 100,000 vehicles per year.
Yeah.
Doesn't really
Nice.
matter what vehicles you produce.
Yeah, no, I think that if I'm like an electric car company, I guess electric cars wouldn't really work that great. But if I was a new car company, I think that if I wanted to spend the money and go into NASCAR, I think that is advantageous for me and for NASCAR.
Sure. And whether you decide to race a nameplate or not is up to you.
I think it should be, because I just don't think it materially affects the sport that much.
In a way, it kind of makes it so that it's like it's a car that you can't buy anyway. Like you can't buy that version of the car. So why lie? Why say that this is a Toyota Camry XSE? It's a Toyota race car.
I mean, that's the thing, is like they're not even Toyota Camrys. They're
Right.
not actually Corvettes.
Right.
So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I think it's fine. I think it's fine, because none of these things are actually those cars anyway.
Right. Well, on to our next lap, I suppose. Lap 6 is about Progressive. Denny Hamlin started the year, the driver of the number 11 Toyota Camry XSE, started the year without a primary sponsor. So his semi-truck that hauls his car around, they call it a hauler, it was pretty empty. So people were like, hey, with FedEx leaving, like, who's going to fill that spot? And you've got to think, like, the team is trying to match a sponsor to the salary, but also the performance, right? So, like, if you've got kind of a newbie, you're going to expect to pay less, but you're also probably not going to run first. You're not going to win a race. You're not even going to really run top 5. That's the expectations, right? But you've got somebody like Denny Hamlin out there. I mean, guy wins races, won a couple of races last year, a few races last year, and you would expect him to do the same this year. He's going to command a lot higher price.
Yeah.
Both in salary and in the sponsorship realm. So they just announced an 18 race partnership. That's kind of the thing about Joe Gibbs. He likes to do long-term deals. We're not changing the car every week.
I mean, that's the way honestly, it's the way to do it.
It is a nice way to do it. It's expensive, and so you don't see it a lot, but he got a deal done with Progressive. I feel like this, and this is just a joke, people. Don't take this to heart, but I feel like part of that is so that when Denny runs into the wall, like he always does, he can jump out and say, I'm so thankful to have the great coverage from the folks at Progressive. I know that they're going to get this Toyota Camry XSE fixed up just as good as new for the next race. I feel like it's a good fit.
Yeah, I think that it works really well, especially like given the brand, right? Like if, because here's the thing about it, like it wouldn't make sense for Menards to do any of that because it's not really tied to racing, right? It's like if I'm, it's like in the NFL where they're like, you just won the Super Bowl, what are you going to do now? It's like, I'm going to save big money at Menards. Like that's off brand. That's off brand.
Right.
But for Progressive, it's actually such a good fit because it's more expensive. But for them to actually get that spot and for him to say those words would drive lot of traffic to Progressive.
For sure. And they've seen a lot of traffic from NASCAR races. So they've been on the commercial side of things for a while. And clearly they like what they're seeing. They've decided to go with an 18 race sponsorship. And I really hope that this works out well. And they can say, it didn't say that it's a multi-year deal. And I feel like that's one of those things that if it was a multi-year deal, they certainly would have said so. So I feel like we're trying things out. And hopefully it's going to work out and we get a multi-year deal out of this.
Yeah. Well, that guy's got a tall order to fill.
For sure.
As far as being able to place first and all that type of stuff. Because imagine he does perform really well and he gets a multi-year deal.
It sure would. So from a business perspective, though, like if you're Progressive here, how do you feel about Progressive signs a 18 race sponsorship with entity who is suing NASCAR? You're sponsoring the guy who is suing NASCAR. How does that reflect on your brand?
So I think that, again, this is kind of tough because NASCAR, Progressive is run by very legacy-esque fellas, like old suits, if you will. I would imagine that there's probably enough dissonance between this driver suing NASCAR for whatever thing it is. Like, I don't know how big of a deal the case is amongst the fans. Is very detached to car insurance. And so I think that if anything, it either matters not much at all, or it's the whole thing of like this is a in the case it is like a big deal and people are talking about it. It's a driver um, that has a lot of attention, and so by proxy, if you sponsor this driver, you kind of pique some of that. You know, it's like the idea of like signing like an ultra expensive, like way overpriced sponsorship, like what Kick did with XQC, like the $100 million deal, so that they could get hundreds of millions of dollars of press for free and coverage. Oh no!
It looks like Dan's going to need a quick pit stop. So
Oh no!
we'll
Shit!
be right back. Stand by.
Caution! Flag the caution!
All right. So unfortunately, Dan, unlike the NASCAR teams that have several sets of tires, Dan does not have several sets of batteries. And so we're just going to see a representation of Dan when he talks.
Yeah, I wonder if I can take like a picture and it just like shows up on the screen when I do it.
That's something we're committed to looking into here on Tinago Radio. So stay tuned for next week. All right. So Progressive. I think that's going to be a good brand. How do you feel about all the people who don't like Denny Hamlin? There was some concern, like when Kyle Busch was sponsored by M&M's, that people would stop buying M&M's because Kyle Busch is a bad driver and like takes people out and like makes fun of the fans who don't like him.
Am I like from the perspective of Eminem? How do I feel?
Yeah, I mean, from the perspective of the team who signed millions of dollars to be on the race car, how do those type of driver actions concern you, or not so much?
So if it actually leads to a dip in sales, then I'm livid. I'm very upset because the whole reason I gave you these millions of dollars so I would recoup the cost. If you're being somebody that the fans don't like, and then they tie that association strongly with the brand, then yeah, very angry about that. So I don't know how, because who did they sponsor for the longest time? Was it Hamlin?
Who?
Eminem.
Eminem sponsored Kyle Busch.
Kyle Busch. I thought, who did Eminem sponsor like years and years ago though?
Oh,
Who do I remember them from?
It's probably still Kyle Busch because that was like well over a decade of sponsorship.
It may be.
Eminem's has been in the sport since like the 90s though, so maybe you're thinking further than Kyle.
I think it's possible that I might be thinking of somebody else.
Sure.
Oh well, no, I guess it would have had to be Kyle Busch still.
So, I don't know, like times where you get, and it's such a split second decision.
Mm-hmm.
Like Kyle ended up putting the most popular driver in NASCAR in the wall.
Yeah.
And he was in the lead too. So Dale Earnhardt Jr. getting dumped. And Pedigree Dog Food was in the spotlight for a little while there. And it's like, well, what are you gonna do? I guess you've signed a multi-year deal with these people.
Yeah. Well, you're tapped in on that. It becomes very unfortunate when he hasn't technically violated the agreement, but he's hurting the brand, and so it's like they're both stuck with each other in that scenario.
Right. Nowhere to go.
Yeah, nowhere to go. And so I guess you just give the manager a very stern talking to.
I guess so.
And hope that he doesn't TBI anybody into the right side wall.
Would you send somebody to the Monday drivers meeting?
Oh, I'm 1,000% sending somebody down there.
Like an intern or like somebody that's a director of marketing?
Well, I probably wouldn't send the marketing guy. I would probably send. I just find the scariest looking guy in my office.
Sure.
And I would just send him down there and have him make just a big hoopla.
The guy who hasn't shaved his beard in like 6 years?
Yeah, has long beard, hasn't shaved it, wears glasses,
couple of face
red
tattoos.
headphones.
Yeah.
I would just send you down there, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
that's what I would do.
Okay. Well, I'll try to be intimidating.
Yeah, you have to be, man.
All right.
No, but it's like, it's one of those things where like, it's crazy to me that the drivers, because all these drivers have been in the game for a long time. Like,
for sure.
They should know better. They've worked with these brands.
You would think so, right?
They should know. But I imagine that a lot of them don't.
A lot of them are just doing what you need to do. You know, because if you win one race, you're into the run for the championship. So that makes people pretty desperate. And the longer we go on, like right now, we've got some pretty clean racing, you know?
Mhm.
And we'll talk about that more as we get into this week's races. But man, I tell you what, the closer you get to the second Daytona race, that's your last chance to get in.
Yeah.
So that's like, it's tough.
Yeah. So it gets
and
real
people get
cutthroat.
desperate. It gets very cutthroat towards the end there, yeah. So, all right.
Yeah.
What do you suppose? We'll move on to lap 5 here. All right, so the championship race location. This isn't exactly big news, but something that maybe viewers are looking forward to this weekend's race at Homestead. Homestead was the longtime favorite for the championship. And then Phoenix got a makeover, and it's a nicer, newer track. And, you know, November in Phoenix is always going to be nice. You're never going to have snow. So they moved it to Phoenix for several years. And the downside of that is Penske has something figured out at Phoenix. They just do well every single time.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've been winning championships down there. And so my question to you is, like, how do you feel as a NASCAR newbie, if you will? I don't want to insult you, but like,
Valid.
as somebody who's kind of newer to the sport, how do you feel about one place being the championship race every year?
I think that it probably doesn't make it as skill based, because like nowadays especially, it's like if I know that this is the race where I'm going to race championship, right? I'm probably going to spend a ton of time in the simulator just grinding that one track, right? Because the idea of it's like you said you have to win one race to go to championship or to qualify.
I mean, you have to be in the championship 4, which takes a little while. Takes some effort to get there. But once you're there, yeah, that race is the only race that matters.
So then, yeah, I imagine I would spend a ton of time on that. But if they were to switch it around, then it's like those years of racing that track, it doesn't compound. Like you end up having to switch which track it is. Which, I mean, I guess I could see how that would kind of even things out.
So my thought is that they give you a trophy at the end of the year that doesn't say, like, congratulations, you won at Phoenix. It says, congratulations, you were the best driver in NASCAR Cup Series this year.
Mm-hmm.
And it has all of the different tracks that we raced at that year engraved into the cup. So it's a little bit disingenuous to say that you're good at everything if you're only have to be good at a couple tracks throughout the year. I feel like you should be able to move that championship date from one track to another, and it should still carry. You know, even if it's a rotation of like southern tracks. And I know that NASCAR wants it to be at one of their venues.
Well, yeah.
You know, I would love to see it at Kansas. I don't think we'll see it at Kansas. It's just too. People say, "Oh, you know, you look at the Chiefs games." Well, yeah, but the players can play in the snow. We can't drive in the snow. It's not really something that NASCAR is good at, and you don't want to delay your championship race because of snow.
That's fair.
So, I mean, it is what it is, but like, I think you need to rotate it, and not a super speedway. I know I just said you have to be good at everything, but super speedways have so many variables that it's not always driver skill, right? It's how the cards fall, and you don't want to decide your champion based on how the cards fell. You also don't want to decide your champion on like lap 215 because everybody crashed out, and this was the last guy to crash out.
Okay.
So the idea being that
you really got some cooties going on over there.
Oh man, I'm so sick. But the idea being that like Phoenix and Las Vegas and maybe Kansas, definitely Homestead would be in that rotation. I feel like there's enough 1.5-mile ovals on the track or on the schedule that like that's NASCAR's bread and butter. I feel like that needs to be the championship race. It needs to be at 1.5 miles. So that would be, you know, your Kansas or Vegas or Homestead, Miami.
Yeah. But we don't think they're going to do any of that. We think they're just going to keep it
Um,
in the same route.
they're gonna fix up. That's why they moved Homestead, because Homestead needs to do renovations. So they're gonna do that over the off season here, right after this next weekend.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll see Miami back on the schedule. We're not sure yet, though. But you would agree that one track is definitely not the way to go. We should rotate it, kind of like the NFL. You know, the NFL doesn't just pick one stadium and say, yeah, this is the one.
Yeah, I think that they should be rotating it out. Now, obviously, like you're talking about, there's some tracks that they can't really do it at unless they like market the schedule and stuff like that. Um, but I think it's like, yeah, you just don't race at those, and then you find other tracks to take it to. Because I think it would just make it more interesting as opposed to it being at the same track every time.
For sure. All right. Well, and it gives the track something to look forward to, too. I feel like it gives them a reason to, like, clean things up and make yourself really spiffy because you're hosting the championship.
Yeah, you know.
So,
like, I bet you Coda would have been in a much better position had they run a championship there.
yeah, I don't know about Coda. It's a leased track, but maybe it could be a championship someday.
Hypotheticals.
Sure could.
The point still stands.
For sure. They would put much more effort. Hopefully, you would hope that they'd put more effort into hosting a championship race than they would.
Yeah.
I mean, they host their own championship, so why not host NASCAR's? Anyway. Okay. So that was lap 5. No lap 4, no ARCA this week. So we were at Las Vegas. So lap 3 is the Truck Series. And, of course, once again, it's Heim time. I don't think it's a bad thing for Corey Heim to hang out in the Truck Series this long. I think that things are going really good for him. You know, might as well let him.
Is it like abnormal? Is it abnormal for him to be in the Truck Series?
I mean, after a little while, you're supposed to move on. I think that he wants a championship. He's seen this championship ripped away from him a couple times, and I don't fault him for wanting to go after that.
Yeah, I suppose I can understand that.
He's also wise enough to not just take the first opportunity in Cup or in Xfinity. I mean, if he moves to Xfinity, he wants a good car. He wants to be with a good team. And I think he deserves that.
Yeah, especially, like, is he a high performer in Truck Series?
Very much a high performer in trucks, yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's actually wise for him to do that. Like, he's playing the long game of, like, hey, I'm not going to just jump onto any team. I'm going to, like, prove myself to be really, really good in Truck Series. That way I can get a really, really strong offer when I do go to Xfinity or Cup.
Yeah, and I think
that's how you build a name for yourself.
It absolutely is. Yeah, people are going to remember you now. You know?
Yeah.
And I think he's loyal to Toyota, which helps.
Oh, 100%. If you can be loyal to a brand, man, they'll take care of you.
For sure. Especially these manufacturers.
Yeah.
They have a lot more swing with the teams than you think.
Oh, I believe it.
Are you, like, working on a controller over there? Oh, okay. I thought I heard some clicks. My bad. So the other thing for trucks is Spire. Spire's got, a lot of all-star trucks this year, and they've been doing really well. It's the same story in trucks as it is in Cup. We're doing really good on Saturdays, not so great on Sundays. And I guess, really good in qualifying, not so great in the race. And that's just a shame to see. I wish that we could figure that one out, because it seems like it's...
What's the discrepancy there? Like,
they're supposed to be spec cars. They're supposed to be the exact same vehicles. But for some reason, some cars last a little longer than others. And the other thing, like, if you ask Denny Hamlin about it, which is, his opinion's a lot stronger than mine, it has to do with how you set your car up. So you can either set your car up to qualify well when the track is dry, there's no rubber on it, you're not in traffic. So you set your car up to be fast today. Or you can set your car up to be fast tomorrow when it is in traffic, when there is rubber on the racetrack because of the other two series that raced here.
Yeah.
When there are all those other problems, and so you might start 15th, but you're going to run up front because you're ready for that slick track.
Yeah. Well, then I guess it would make more sense to if that's, I don't know, because I guess that's the thing, right? It's a trade that you make either way, right? Like if you set it up to do well in the actual race, and then you take a lower position in qualifiers, like you put a lot more pressure to really perform, right?
Right.
It's like it's the theory of like, is it easier to climb positions with a car that's spec'd for race day, or to maintain your position when your car was built for qualifying?
Right. And I suppose that changes from track to track.
I'd imagine so. You know, and that goes
Passing
back
is
to the whole.
probably
That probably also would add more spice to what we were talking about with championship tracks.
for sure, for sure. That's why different tracks, different times of year. I would like to see us race at a place that we've never raced at in November. You know what I mean? Like the pavement is so cold in Kansas in November that we've never seen it before. The grip has got to be really good.
I bet.
Or like Watkins Glen, we just put a little plow truck on the front of each car.
That'd be something.
Move the snow out of the way. Huh. I don't know. Because they're in northwest New York, so you better believe they've got snow on the track in November.
Yeah.
So,
I guess that's just not super vibe.
no. I guess it makes sense for us to talk about this during the truck lap, because plow trucks. All right. So, anyway, lap 2, Xfinity. Not a lot going on in Xfinity this week. I mean, I didn't have many notes, to be honest with you. Justin Allgaier won it.
That's
Pretty
my.
typical.
Is that my Menards guy?
No, that's your Reese's guy.
I was gonna say, bro. I was like, I know that name. I rooted. No, that was. He drove the Reese's car at Texas Motor Speedway.
He sure did.
Yeah. And I rooted for him then, and then I didn't end up rooting for him again. I don't think since then.
No, because then you were going for Brandon Jones in the Menards car.
Yeah. And then it wasn't. No, that's fair. Yeah, because
remember.
it never raced after that in Xfinity. I was looking at
Right. So, I don't know. Allgaier win. Pretty slow news day for Xfinity, but Cup had some interesting things to look at. Michael McDowell won the pole. That was the first pole in Spire history, and the fastest car, or the fastest lap ever sent by a Gen 7 car. So in this type of car, we've never seen a lap that fast, and I think that says something about the Chevy body. I think that Chevy still has the best car, which is why it's kind of funny that they want to change it.
Like, as in, like, it's aerodynamic more than the others, or just that they have actually built and spec'd a better car than the others.
Yeah. So the only thing that you get to change is how the car looks. And the idea there is like, hey, this doesn't look like a Toyota Camry, so I want it to be a little bit more swoopy here, and a little bit like I want to put a line in there, and in order to make those justifications, NASCAR's like, well, is that how you're selling your cars? Is that what the cars rolling off the assembly line look like? Which is where we go back to, how does Chevy get to just do whatever they want? They're like, oh well, we need the bumper to be really swoopy, so that's what we're doing. And NASCAR's like, is that how you're selling them? Oh, we don't sell this car. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can see how this turns into a slippery slope.
It sure can, because you might have cars out there that don't look anything like cars. They just look like what would race well in NASCAR. So I don't know.
It's again the trade of being able to have that freedom would probably be better for the drivers and for the companies, but probably would be worse for the fan.
The relatability's not there. But for Michael McDowell to turn a lap that's way faster like this on a couple different random tracks, I mean, it says a lot about Spire. It says a lot about Chevrolet.
Yeah.
Coming from Front Row Equipment, they're a Tier 1 team now. They weren't necessarily when he was there. It's interesting. And now you see the same thing with another Ford driver that went to Toyota now, Chase Briscoe. Arguably again in top tier, not even arguably, in top tier equipment with Joe Gibbs Racing, and winning that pole. He's standing out a lot more than he did with the Ford Mustang in the Toyota Camry XSE. And so I think it says a lot about the different bodies that they do make a difference. It's not just the racer, it's the car.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing that, I mean, I guess we talked a little bit more on when we were watching I think it was the Cup. It may have been the Xfinity race from the last one, but we were talking a lot about how old boy just had like he had the fastest lap time, like he had the fastest car on the track, and that's what allowed for him to climb so many positions and eventually come back and win the race.
For sure. And sometimes it's not the fastest car that wins the race. Like last week, it was Michael McDowell.
Mm-hmm.
Not at Las Vegas. It was at Phoenix.
Yeah.
He had the fastest lap, but things happened and didn't end up finishing on the lead lap at all. Even he spent a lot of time in the garage, but
Yeah.
that's a nice new change to the rules this year that you can go into the garage, fix your car, and come back. And even if you finish 20 laps down, bless you,
Thank you.
you still finish. So
Yeah, because that would have really saved us when Kyle Busch wrecked.
yeah, it would have made a huge difference.
Yeah.
To at least be able to see him out there, even if he's fighting for 20 laps down. You're like, well,
Yeah.
you know,
Because imagine
at
like
least he's out there.
Yeah, because I think the downside is that you kind of have what we had, where we had one driver we were there to watch, right? And now we can't watch him because he got spun into a wall, or
For sure.
or lost a tire, or what have you. You know, so I think that that's a decision that they made that is very pro fan, and I'm a big fan of that.
Absolutely, go garage time.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we had a new winner this week. Boy, howdy! If you were making your betting odds on Vegas, and you had Josh Berry in your cards there, you came out really good.
Yeah.
I think it was 1,000 to 1 odds.
Wow.
So really could have made some money there, but nobody saw it coming. Josh Berry had a top 5 last week, and then to win it this week was pretty crazy.
Gosh, I bet you there's like the one guy who made like a shot in the dark bet on this guy, and that guy's cheesing right now.
I feel like Josh's grandma has been betting on him every week since he started.
Yeah.
You know?
She just earned back a fraction of the money that she's lost over the years.
Well, I was doing the math, and I'm like, even if you bet $100 every week, every time that he's raced, he's only been in it 1 year now, 1.5 years.
Yeah.
So you've only put about 40. So you've bet $4,000, and you would have won 100,000.
Okay, so you said the odds were 1,000 to 1?
Yeah.
Does that mean that you get 1,000x on the return?
Yeah.
Okay, so she could have put $100, and then she could have got
100,000.
Oh snap!
Yeah, so you would have made your money back the entire time. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe we see that in the news. Josh Berry's grandma gets a new car and a new house or something. But it was kind of cool. And I wish I wrote this down in my notes, but
Yeah.
they were saying that the Wood brothers, who are the oldest team in NASCAR, oldest continuously operating team in NASCAR, you can always point them out because they're the 21 Motorcraft Ford. Their Motorcraft is like the OEM. If you buy a Motorcraft part, it's a OEM Ford part.
Okay.
And so they're always running the Motorcraft Ford scheme in the 21 car for the Wood brothers. And they won last season with Harrison Burton at Daytona. And so this was the first time that they've gone back-to-back in winning seasons since like the 80s or 90s.
Really?
I mean, it's been a long time, in part because they're kind of a development driver team. You know what I mean? Like you don't, you might start there, but it's not where you want to end your career. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
and Josh Berry just turned the lights on him. He's ready to get that offer for next year.
Yeah.
So, and then interestingly enough, we had more tires going missing. I feel like this is becoming a safety issue. We talked about tires just falling off.
Of the car?
Yeah,
Oh.
while we're racing.
Well, that sounds like a safety issue.
It sure is. If you think about it, like these tires are pumped up really high. So we've seen in other motorsports like IndyCar where a guy loses a tire and it goes over the catch fence because it's so pumped up that like if you hit that tire, yeah, it's just going to go flying off your front bumper, over the fence, and into the stands, and could kill people.
Yeah.
So this is a problem, and that's why NASCAR is like, hey, if you lose a tire on the track, it's a really bad penalty. Like your car chief is suspended for a race or two, and your crew is suspended, and like it's a big fine, and they take it seriously. But still, I mean, when it's only one lug nut, it's all or nothing. Either the tire is tight or it's not.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that might have been. So
it's not even just
downside.
the tire coming off of the rim; it's the whole wheel coming off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's even worse. I thought it was just the tire like separating from the rim.
No, because if the tire fell off the rim and you're just pushing rubber, like that's not going to bounce. You know?
Yeah.
We're talking about a fully inflated basketball getting bounced off the front bumper of a race car.
Yeah, at a high rate of speed, that weighs
that sucker
so odd pounds.
Is flying.
Yeah.
You know? So.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad they take a huge stance on it and the penalties. I'm honestly surprised the penalty's not much bigger.
Right.
It being such a safety hazard.
It is probably one of the sternest penalties that they have. But so C. Bell had an issue with his tire. They said, and you can kind of tell right as soon as the car's driving away, you're like, oh man, I didn't get that tire tight. And you can tell your crew. And in this case, they caught it fast enough that they had him pull in to his teammate's box.
Ah, and they tightened it up.
So some people are saying that we need a new rule that says that only your crew can work on your car. How do you feel about that?
I mean, that doesn't sound very team-like. Me personally.
Well, yeah, but I'm Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and I'm the only car on my team. Like nobody's gonna help me.
See, this is one of those things where like people want to add rules and subtract stuff in the pursuit of like pure balance, but there will never be pure balance.
No.
Right. And so I think that when you have a situation like that, it just comes down to the question of like, is it better for the fans?
I feel like it's safer.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and I think that not having a 100-pound wheel hurl at my head at 100 miles an hour, I think that's very pro-fan.
For sure.
And I'm with that. Because I think otherwise you just increase the risk of other things going wrong. And I think that if one racer has to position a little bit worse or be at a slight disadvantage, I think that's worth the trade.
Well, and in this case, he did pit outside of his box.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a penalty. He did have to restart at the rear, but at least he didn't lose a tire.
Exactly. I'd rather do that.
And people say, like, it's not fair for the one-car teams. I'm like, well, you know, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is a Chevy. So I feel like if you pull into any Chevy box, they'll help you. And to be honest with you, I feel like just about anybody's going to get out there and help you. You just need the tire tightened, right? You don't need a new tire. So, like...
Yeah. You're not losing resources.
Right. I mean, I feel like people want to help you for the safety of the sport.
Yeah.
But maybe that's just me. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think it comes like this, right? The other thing is it's like if I'm another team's crew, I'm happy to come help. Let's say I'm not even on your team, right? I may still help you. I may take my sweet time tighten that lug nut. But I'd rather you place worse than kill one of the fans in the stand.
Well, yeah, I mean, even if you take your sweet time, I'm still restarting at the back of the longest line, so it really doesn't matter. I don't care if you
that's a good point. Yeah,
take a big swig of Celsius.
I think the penalty makes up for it.
For sure.
It's significant to get kicked all the way back.
Yeah, you're starting in the back. It's like, oops, we should have tightened that lug nut. Do you feel like it would be better to go back to the 5 lug nuts? Like your car and my car both have 5 lug nuts on it, and the Xfinity cars and the trucks all have 5 lug nuts.
What do they have now? They have 6?
1. In Cup, it's 1 big lug nut now. That's why we keep losing tires, Dan.
Well, if that's the cause, if we have the data to support that, hey, these incidents happen, yeah, then to go back to 5.
Yeah, we never used to have this. Yeah. We used to have your guy would get out with a really fast pit stop, and we'd be like, woo.
Yeah.
And then the NASCAR official would be like, "Ooh, I see 2 lug nuts sitting in your pit stall. You definitely lost lug nuts on that car. You need to bring it back in. It's missing lug nuts." But you weren't going to lose it. You know, it's the same thing. Like not that I advise this. This is not legal advice. But if you're ever out and about and you like lose a tire and you need to change to your spare and you're in the dark and you happen to lose a lug nut or two, like you have 5 lug nuts, space them out. But like even if you need to run 4 lug nuts on 2 wheels, steal a lug nut from a different tire.
Yeah, it'll suffice.
So you're gonna be okay.
Yeah.
You're gonna get to the shop, and even if you don't get to the shop, you just find the nearest Napa Auto Parts. Napa Know How, not the official sponsor for Tendigo Radio yet.
Yeah,
but
I think it's the question from there is it's like, hey, you can make it like 20-30 minutes to the shop, but can you make it 20-30 laps to get to pit?
NASCAR won't let you.
I didn't think so.
It was a safety issue. They wanted you to come in and put those lug nuts back on right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it just goes to show that, like, hey, we don't have the convenience of saying, ooh, you missed a lug nut. Nope, sorry. Now we know you missed a lug nut because there's a tire rolling through turns 1 and 2 and your car is on the backstretch.
Yeah. Yeah, I think at that point you go back to 5.
Yeah.
And then you just deal with the punishments of you lose a lug nut and you got to come back.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, Gen 8 cars, 5 lug nuts. Let's see it.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, an incident involving a loose fucking wheel is going to do far more for as far as like hurting the sales of events than
for sure
any of the brand shit that we've talked about.
For sure. Well, I suppose ready to call it.
Yeah, I think so.
Week 3 is in the books.
In the books, baby.
We'll see you guys next week.
I was playing hooky for week 2, but we're back.
We'll see you in week 4.
Bye-bye.